we are back. So I mentioned listener role. The involvement of the listener in the verbal interaction is determines how well the listener carries out the process of the skill of listening. That means that the listener can take any of these 5 positions or roles. The first is what we call the participant. The participant role refers to the person spoken to directly and who has all rights to respond. Typical example of that would be when 2 friends are having a discussion. Both of them speak to each other directly, and both of them have all the rights to respond to whatever the other is saying. The second role or position is that of the addressee, and this refers to the person spoken to directly but has limited rights to respond. So let's look at an example where the lecturer is in class and is addressing the student and maybe ask the student a question and the person responds. It's a limited right. You just give the answer that is needed and you don't go on talking with each other back and forth. The third role is that of the auditor. In the case of the auditor, it refers to a member of an audience that is being directly addressed but is not expected to respond in a detailed manner. And I think in our class, we gave the example of a bus full of passengers moving from one bus stop to the other, and the conductor asks who is getting down at the next bus stop. And only those that are going to drop at that bus stop will respond. And the response is not a detailed response, probably just me, one word. There's no detail involved. So that's the role of the auditor. The fourth role is that of the overhearer, and this refers to a person who is not being addressed and is not expected to respond. That person just happens to be within hearing range of the discussion. The discussion is not being addressed to that person, and the person has no right to respond. And the fifth role, or the last position, is that of the judge. The listener who takes on this role as a judge is one who listens to presentation, and at the end of those presentations is expected to make far-reaching pronouncements. For example, in a court of law, you see the lawyers argue their case, the judge listens to those presentations, and at the end of the day, it is the judge who makes the pronouncement whether the person is guilty or not guilty. Another example could be found in the classroom setting, whereby there is a group presentation and the lecturer listens to that presentation and then makes a pronouncement. Or even students themselves, when you are in group presentations, those that are not in the group listen to the presentation and then they're expected to give an opinion about the presentation. So in that case, they're acting as the judge. It is important to note that one or two of these roles can arise in any collaborative discourse, because the listener may also be involved in constructing that conversation. So they are not mutually exclusive. In one discourse, the listener could be a participant and later switches to an auditor or later switches to a judge. Let's move on to the listening purpose and type. The purpose for listening is of great importance because it determines how well a listener contributes to the verbal content. If one is involved in a discussion and you know that it is not for any, it's not of great importance to you, the tendency is that you will not pay much attention. When you know what your purpose is, especially those of you that are students in the classroom setting, for example, you are there to learn and gain information. If you keep that purpose in mind, you will pay more attention to what the lecturer is saying so that you can pick up more information and knowledge of the topic. Now, there are 4 listening types. The first is the transactional listening. And this is a type of listening that occurs when one is listening for new information. So like a new student who comes into the university in year 1, and then maybe they're having an orientation. When you listen to what is being said to you during that orientation, you are carrying out transactional listening because you are listening for new information. The same thing occurs when you attend lectures. You're listening for new information, transactional listening. The second type is the interactional listening. And this occurs when you recognize personal components of a message. For instance, if in the class I say, those of you who are not registered, please stand up. You listen and then you pick up that personal component of the message. If you registered, you will not stand up. If you did not register, you will stand up. The third type is the critical listening. And this occurs when you are evaluating reasoning and evidence. And of course, when you attend lectures, it is one of the types of listening that you should be carrying out. The fourth listening type is the one we call recreational listening. And this occurs when appreciating random or integrated information. For example, if you're at home listening to the news on TV, you may not be paying 100% attention to everything that is said. But something comes up, maybe you hear ASU embarks on a strike. That quickly grabs your attention. So it's recreational listening in the sense that you are appreciating a random piece or integrated information from the entire news bulletin that was on. Again, just like you have in the case of the role, the listening type are not mutually exclusive. This means that one can switch from one kind of listening type to another, even during one particular context. Now let's look at listening in the academic context. As students, we know that you are here to learn, and that means that during your stay in the university, you will be doing a lot of listening. In fact, the listening load is quite heavy. Where will you be listening? Number 1, during lectures. And you have to improve on your listening skills, because we all know that lectures are maybe 45 minutes only and a lot of information is passed on. So as you improve your skills, you will find out that you will listen more effectively and get more from the content that is being passed on to you. Another situation or another time when students do a lot of listening is during seminars, during Viva Voice, and during group presentation. Again, when you develop your listening skills, you'll be able to effectively listen and interpret whatever is being, whatever the message or messages are being put across to you. So in order to carry out this effective listening during academic exercises, students need to understand that there are various factors that can affect their listening skill, and also note that there are many activities that can enhance same.